podcast. My name is Melanie Nevis.
And I'm Tegan Aline. Hey.
We are going to be continuing our discussion of saints. And I don't think everyone kind of knows what a saint is, but maybe you're a little unfamiliar if you don't practice or have not
fair.
been in
That is a good point.
that practices.
Assumed, but yeah, you're totally right. We should definitely that maybe.
So all Christians are called to be saints, and saints are people who are in heaven, whether they are officially canonized or not, who have lived heroically virtuous lives, or they have offered their life for others, or were martyred for their faith, as your Saint Estelle was in the last episode, and who are worthy of imitation. I'm just diving right in here.
No, I think it's good. I didn't realize all Christians were called to be saints, though.
Well, we're all called to live virtuous lives and, defend the tradition and all of this stuff.
My bad. I don't consider myself Christian anyway. Not for years, anyway. Heathen all the way.
And, with anything that has changed throughout time, the process of becoming a saint has changed as well.
Yeah.
And so now I think there's 3 steps required to reach sainthood.
Okay.
So you have to be venerable and then blessed, and then you become a saint. So a venerable is the title that's given to a person who's deceased that's been formally recognized by the Pope as having lived a heroically virtuous life or offered their life.
Yeah, you have to die first, right? You can't be a living saint, can you?
You can't be a living saint.
Okay.
No.
Just curious.
All for glory.
I was thinking of Mother Teresa. I couldn't remember if she was a saint while she was alive.
Not technically.
I think
everyone called her a saint, but she wasn't technically a saint.
Ah, okay.
Everyone's she's like a living saint, but that's just a form of expression. She wasn't ever acknowledged by the church while she was alive.
Not the official
as being
title.
Saint.
Got it.
No.
Not the copyrighted trademark. Not a trademark saint.
No. Then you have to be beatified and recognized as a blessed, a miracle acquired through the act of saying prayer on behalf of another person. This is a lot of
You can't see, exactly, but I'm stroking my invisible what? Sorry. Wow. Okay.
And then canonization requires a second miracle after beatification. It's declared by the Pope that a dead person is in a state of bliss, constituting as the first step towards canonization. And then, public veneration is permitted. Sometimes the Pope can waive these requirements. A miracle is not necessarily required for beatification, but it's required before they are canonized. Okay, so all of our saints have to have had performed some sort of miracle at some point in time. And then the church declares that the person is a saint.
And has it always been that way, or are those rules that were implemented at a certain time?
That's what it is now.
Okay.
But the saints that we're talking about, I'm guessing, are a little older. So in the first 5 centuries of the church, the process for recognizing the saint was really based on the voice of the people.
Yeah.
Popular vote.
Yeah, and in the last series, Saint Estelle, she was very well known by the all the people in the area. So
yeah,
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's vox populi. That's really shit Latin for voice of the people. There was no formal canonical process as there is today. It was only in beginning in the 6th century to the 12th century that then bishops had to be involved. The local bishop had to kind of be involved to declare someone a saint. And then they would,
started to
write a request
in the church. Only.
Yeah. Then they'd write the request to the Pope, and then a decree would be issued.
Oh
Or like,
my.
I think, no, it was first like from the 6th to the 10th century, the bishop was involved. And then after the 10th century, the bishop had to then write to the Pope, and the Pope had to be included and review the cause and approve it. But at first, it was just popular vote.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's really interesting and a great insight into the structure of the church in general and how things shifted over time.
Yeah. And so the saint that we're talking about today lived from the year 231 to 251. So a lot of this, based on what we just said,
Mhm.
she became a saint based on popular vote. And
Okay.
a lot of the story, because this is quite old, is missing and based on hearsay.
Yeah.
And yeah,
The
we're talking about Saint Agatha. I don't know if you've ever heard of Saint
Okay.
Agatha.
I've heard of her, but I don't know her story. But I actually like that. I like that we've covered like two pretty old saints because I think honestly
Yeah,
probably the best saints are probably the ones that were actually voiced by the people. The people thought they deserved to be saints. So like
yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. I like that we're starting there. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Saint Agatha.
Okay,
Tell
so
me about her.
Saint Agatha, and like a lot of these stories, kind of like yours, there's a lot of stuff that's missing a little bit. So
Yeah, we're
we'll see
ad
how long
libbing.
this
We're gonna
episode
ad lib
is.
in. We gotta ad lib. Oh, I ad libbed so much of the last episode because I
Yeah,
like I want to learn about this girl. I go to read about her. There's like 2 paragraphs. I was like, what?
yeah,
But they're
yeah.
still
So like
interesting. They're still very interesting.
they're still really interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see how long this episode is. I don't
Okay.
know.
Once.
Um, she is the patron saint of Catania in Sicily,
Catania.
and
Where's Catania?
or Catania, I don't know, in Sicily.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how you say it. Oh, but it's like way down in the south there.
It's basically the ball that the boot's kicking.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um,
Interesting.
and she actually ended up dying in prison during the persecution of Christians. And
Your cat really likes it when we say persecution of Christians. She just comes
yeah, I know.
rolling up and she's all like purring and stuff.
Yeah, she's something, all right. Yeah, so she died in prison during the persecution of Christians, and this persecution of Christians was ordered by King Decius, who ruled very short time, just from 249 to 251.
Okay. Oh yeah, not long at
She
all. A
was
few years.
not long at all, and I mean, like, yes, she died because all saints die. That's how they get sainthood, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah.
So she was a great beauty of noble birth,
Mm.
and she was at the age of 15 when she became a consecrated virgin, which is the state where young women, like Estelle, choose to remain celibate and gives
Hmm.
themselves wholly to Jesus and the church and God, and they devote their life to prayer and service. So she dedicated her virginity to Christ.
Ooh, she is pretty. I just Googled her. Beautiful stained glass. Wow. Okay. Okay.
A little fun fact about Decius. So he's the guy that like started this persecution of Christians. He murdered his predecessor, Philip, in order to make it look like Philip was killed because he was Christian rather than as a power play. He basically ordered an entire wide persecution of Christians and made Quintianus king of Sicily. Okay,
Oh,
so this
okay.
guy that ordered this whole thing of like, we should persecute Christians, he did it as a power play. He wanted to take power, murdered the guy that was there before him, and then just said, oh, but this guy is Christian and we have to like take out all Christians.
Saw it
So,
as an
bit of a
opportunity.
100%.
Which I feel like that's legit, like real, very real.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we watch these shows, we watch all of these TV shows, we read all of these books, and we're like, people could not be that diabolical. But honestly, we were, maybe are still. Like people are very diabolical.
Some people are still very diabolical.
Yeah.
So he made Quintianus king of Sicily.
Okay.
And Quintianus, remember Agatha is of noble birth. Quintianus falls in love with Agatha. And he
Uh-oh.
thought that he could force her to turn away from her vow to Christ and force her to marry. But his very persistent proposals were always turned down by Agatha. She's just not into it.
Oh,
So
I'm already like boiling just hearing that. I'm
Quintianus,
boiling inside.
Quintianus, knowing that she was a Christian, during the persecution of Decius, had her arrested and brought before the judge. He was the judge.
No. How can he?
Yeah.
What? There's no such thing as a conflict of interest back then? Like,
Nope.
clearly he's biased. What a. No, this guy sucks.
So
This guy sucks. Okay.
Agatha
Poor
continues
Agatha.
refusing his sexual advances and objects to handing him her family wealth.
Yeah.
And so he decides to subject her to a wide variety of indignities,
Oh, no.
fully expecting her to give in to his demands when she's faced with torture and possible death.
Oh, another trope we see in a lot of female saint stories. They don't just get died once, they get died like 6 times and they still live. I said died on purpose. I know English.
Yeah. Well, no, she dies just the one time.
Okay.
But she reaffirms her belief in God and she prays, Jesus Christ, Lord of all, you see my heart, you know my desires, possess all that I am. I am your sheep, make me worthy to overcome the devil. And to force her to change her mind, Quintianus had her imprisoned in a brothel of all places.
No. Oh, I hate this guy so much.
Yeah. Agatha never really lost her confidence in God, even though she suffered a month of assaults in an effort to get her to abandon her vow to God and go against her virtue. Now, here's the thing. She suffered assaults as in, like, people would harass her, but apparently her virtue still remained intact. And she never actually, even being in a brothel, apparently, she never gave in to those demands. So she would be harassed and groped and stuff like that, but she never apparently was raped.
I like this part of the story because whether or not even if she was, I like that people tried to keep the fact that it was never her like consent. It was never what she wanted. Like we don't know what really happened, but at least the idea
apparently she remained apparently she remained a virgin. She never gave in to anyone's demands, apparently. So a month later, Quintianus basically ordered her to be brought before him again. And during the interrogation, she told him that to be a servant of Jesus Christ was her true freedom. So it didn't really matter how he imprisoned her and what he did. In her mind, her vow was her salvation and was her freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So he became really mad. He sent her to prison. Yeah. He ended up sending her to prison instead of back to the brothel, which was a move that was really intended to make her a lot more afraid.
Yeah, sure.
And like, what would you be more afraid of, actually?
Probably, I think, complicated answer. Experience would tell me I would be more scared of prison. But once you've hung out in a brothel for a little while and you hear all of their women in a brothel will prepare you for going into prison. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, here's the thing. I feel like the women in the brothel probably tried to help her in a way.
Oh,
and I don't know. But like
think.
the fact that she was in a brothel for a month and apparently her virginity remained intact, I feel like the
somebody
women
was
that were
protecting
there were trying
her.
to, yeah.
And that's what I mean by they would prepare her. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think maybe if she'd just been thrown in jail right away, it might have been more isolating and scary. But what they did is put her in a group of women who maybe actually were like, at least somebody was looking after her. It sounds like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think so. I think so too.
And maybe they didn't all want to be. We don't know who chose to be in a brothel back then. I don't think many people chose it at that point.
No, I think prostitution and sex work is one of the world's oldest professions, but there's a difference between working for yourself and
Like the
then
first
being in a
job
brothel.
ever
It depends.
invented.
Like some brothels were probably a bit better, especially if they, it depends on the brothel and who would own the brothel, I think.
Yeah, I always just from knowing women, I feel like there's two elements that could happen in a brothel. There's female destructive competition, which could very
Mm-hmm.
much exist, but then there's also camaraderie and like looking after each other. And actually our society is so fucked up that those things can exist at the same time in the same place. So
Yeah,
who knows?
that's fair. That's
Yeah.
really fair.
So what happens? She goes to prison and
Yeah. So, yes, Quintianus is really getting more and more angry. She continues refusing his advances, continues basically saying, my freedom is the servitude of Jesus Christ. And so he sends her to prison instead of back to a brothel.
mm-hmm.
And this was a move that was really intended to make her more afraid. Maybe it was a bit of a relief to her in a way. Maybe, like, who knows? Maybe she was tired of being groped. But then he ordered her to be tortured. So,
yeah.
I don't know how much you know about different torture techniques from back in the day. There's lots of, I've been to some torture museums.
I was gonna say
like,
I've visited a few of torture museums in the day. There's one in Carcassonne.
Yeah.
If you're going on
Yeah.
my tour in May, you could check it out when we go to Carcassonne. Side plug.
But they're pretty inventive. I mean, her torture was a classic stretch on the rack,
Ooh,
be
that's
torn
an
with
ouchie
hooks.
one. Oh no.
Yeah.
Dislocating. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a fun one.
And she'd be whipped. She would be burned with torches.
Ugh.
So
Yeah.
with fire.
Classic witch torture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Apparently, Agatha kind of endured this torture with a sense of cheer.
Wow.
Again, like she just like continues finding salvation in God. At this point, I feel like you have to be, in order to survive anything like this, you kind of have to, you have to slip into delusion. Like your reality needs to be a little distorted in order for you to like continue dealing with this with a sense of cheer.
Yeah. Listen, I can tell you from experience, I have died like that in a past life. It's not fun.
We're going to have to talk more about that later.
I was like, wait a minute, isn't that how I died when I was a monk? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And it wasn't great.
Did you do this past life regression? Wait.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was the first one I've ever done in my life, and it was so visually intense that when I came out of it, I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, anyways, I digress. But it's not a fun way. It's not a fun way to be tortured, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, we have to unpack that more some other time.
Different conversation for a different time. But I can genuinely say I feel for her.
Yeah, fair enough. Mm-hmm. Me too. But yeah, I think that you have to be a little bit delusional. And apparently she took this all with ease and was still not happy, but not disastrously upset either. Mm-hmm. And so he ordered a part of her body to be cut off.
Oh no.
Any idea what he ordered to be cut off?
Oh, okay. I knew it was at least one.
As I fondle my breasts.
I know, we're both just pointing at parts. I knew for sure it was one that would make her female.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the one, not the two. So just one or both? That's a horrible
both.
Question.
He ordered
what
her
a
breasts
fucking
to be cut off.
Bastard. Who is this guy? I'm gonna find him and smack him in the face. Weird, he was Sicilian or what's his story?
Quintianus. Mm-hmm. Well, he was made king by the guy. So I think pretty sure that he was Roman because his full name is Tiberius Claudius Pompeianus Quintianus. And I don't know how much more Roman you can get.
Yeah, that is the most fucking ridiculous pompous name I've ever heard. Pompous.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. What a
And like,
bastard.
yeah, he was a politician. He was also a military commander.
Oh, he was horrible. Yeah. Okay. Military commander cutting off boobies.
Yeah, he was the son of a Syrian Roman consul. But
Okay.
anyways, super Roman, and then was ordered to go to Sicily outside of Rome.
Sounds like a dick.
Obviously.
Anyways, so he cut her breast
Yeah.
off because he's a piece.
He cut her breasts off because she kept saying no. And then he sent her back to prison without any food or medical attention.
Oh, gross. Okay.
But the story,
Is that
and
her boobs
really,
came back?
no, not exactly, but why she became a saint,
Yeah.
is that after being sent back to prison in this mutilated state, Saint Peter appeared to Agatha and miraculously healed her wounds through his prayers.
Aww.
Apparently, the prison cell radiated with light, which confused and freaked the guards out.
Yeah.
But she was healed.
Okay.
Yeah, and Saint Peter, he's like a pretty major saint.
Isn't he one of
He's
the
one
apostles?
of the 12 to Yeah, he's one of the 12 apostles.
Isn't he the apostle that denied Jesus?
I think he might be.
Yeah, because I played his wife in a musical once.
Yeah, I think he is.
Well,
but
that's nice that he turned a corner.
He turns a corner eventually, right?
Yeah.
But yes, so this is kind of how she gains, or the actions that lead her to gain this sainthood, because this is a miracle.
Yeah.
Miraculously, her wounds are healed through his prayers.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone sees this bright light. The guards are like, what the fuck is going on? And they look again, and then she's healed.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 days later, Quintianus summons Agatha again, and he sees that the wounds are healed. And he is incredibly shocked, but also incredibly fucking obstinate. This time, he strips her of her clothing and makes her roll over burning coals and sharp stones.
They love to roll a girl too, I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the wrath of God flared up because at that moment there was an earthquake.
Good.
And part of the building they were in crumbled, killing 2 of Quintianus's companions. Why not Quintianus himself? I don't know. Like, if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah, God, if you're gonna do it, like get the freaking guy that's calling all the shots.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people in the town are absolutely outraged at what Quintianus has been doing to Agatha, and they blame him for the earthquake. So now he's got a population that is also very much against him. His guards are starting to wonder if he's like doing such a great thing, and everyone is starting to turn the corner and be like, what are you doing? You are invoking the wrath of God, and this is your fault. And it killed 2 of Quintianus's companions. We don't know if anybody else died. So people of the town are really angry. He's still a fucking dum-dum and doesn't budge.
Oh my God. So many things.
So Agatha is sent back to prison, and then she prays to surrender her spirit to the Lord, who received her into his heavenly home. So basically, she prays to die, and does. And she dies in prison probably in the year 251. And, okay, her martyrdom is authenticated. Her veneration as a saint spread.
I like spraint.
But I just want to put this out there. There is absolutely no reliable information concerning the details of her death. So apparently she prayed to God to die. We don't actually, she might have gotten a fever. She
might have died from the burns of rolling on hot coals. Somebody might have slipped her some poison because the people were starting to feel bad for her. Yeah.
After her death, a cult kind of arose, the cult of St. Agatha. And I think it's just people who really
Told you Christians can be
believed.
cultists.
Yeah. People
Yeah.
who really believed in this virgin, right?
Yeah.
And so she died in like 251. Pope Gregory the Great, who was pope from 590 to 604. So
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at over 250 years later.
Mm-hmm.
That's who elevates her to sainthood.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I wonder why. Wonder what stood out to him about her in particular. Was he connected to Sicily or anything?
I don't think so. I
Oh,
think that it's just like this cult around her kind of grew.
oh, okay.
And
That could
he
be.
establishes February 5th as her feast day. And she
Oh,
was one of the church's very first female martyrs.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Few days before my
Yeah.
birthday.
Ah, yeah,
Interesting.
that's true.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of religious art, she's featured in religious art with shears, with tongs, and often with breasts on a plate,
Oh God. Yeah. Well, at least she got them
right?
back somehow.
Yeah. So Saint Agatha is now the patron saint of Sicily, and
What?
of bell founders because of the perceived resemblance between the shape of bells and breasts. Just gotta
Mm-hmm.
love that.
Yeah. Ding dong.
uh, yeah, she's also the patron saint of breast cancer patients, which makes sense.
Oh, I
Of
found a picture of
Palermo,
her
of
holding the boobs. Yeah. Oh, that's
yeah,
sad.
of rape
Oh,
victims and
yeah.
of wet nurses.
Oh, because of the.
And she is
Wow.
considered to be a very powerful intercessor when people suffer from fires because, she's been rolled in coals and stuff like that.
What you said,
So,
shears or tongs. I see these. It looks like pliers. What's that supposed to
yeah.
represent, though? Do you know?
I imagine that that's like potentially what was used to help shear her
Torture
breasts off,
her. Oh,
right?
yeah,
I don't know for certain, but I
yeah.
think that that's probably what that represents.
Okay, how much time do we have? I have a couple thoughts I've been holding on to through this whole thing that I really need to get off my chest. I didn't mean it like
Um,
that.
well, I have just a couple of more little things, but like go for your questions first.
It's not even questions. It's just that
Thoughts.
there's like layers to this that are really outraging me right now. Obviously, that guy sounds like a
Mm,
piece of shit, right? And and
mm-hmm,
and Saint Estelle's dad sounded like a piece of shit. And we know that these
mm-hmm.
are Catholic stories, so we know that they are being used politically to like deter, like to villainize Roman Empire. Not saying the Roman Empire was great; they were shitty, but but I don't know whether to feel sad or angry because I feel like they are using many stories of sweet innocent women uh, to like create like this villainization of this other nation. And I believe
I
that they
mean,
were real. I believe that these things happened. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So I'm angry
mm-hmm,
for that. I'm angry that they're getting used as these
mm-hmm.
stories. Like it just seems like it's so frustrating as a woman just to hear the way that women have been getting tortured for centuries. I don't know
Yeah,
that like to me personally venerating them as a saint it doesn't make it any better that this happened to them. You know what I mean?
of course not.
Yeah.
Of course
It's
it
just,
doesn't. And it's okay to be angry and sad. And I think everything you're saying is absolutely correct.
but I can also see
Um,
how these stories would just like compel people and women especially
mm-hmm,
to be devoted and connecting that to the concept of a cult here in Europe or a cult of a saint in particular because
yeah,
there are plenty of cults of saints here and what it means here it's just that people have a devotion to that particular saint but not necessarily of course there are branches to the church but ultimately they're looking at that saint as an autonomous person like as a like just
yeah.
that
I
person.
think that's kind of what it was,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I think
a
that
hundred
the,
percent.
the culthood that formed around Agatha was really to memorialize and make sure that something like that never happened again. So this
Yeah,
cult formed,
but just
and
going back to
it
what we
was,
were saying about cults in the beginning, like cult is not always a
yeah,
bad word, I guess is my point on that.
Yeah.
And this is the way that cult is often used, especially when we're talking about the church, especially talking about female saints, because there's a lot of female saints who have cults devoted to
Yeah.
them that are actually just other women devoted to that saint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a way of remembering their story
Yeah.
and a way of like honoring the
And
pain
when
and
you
suffering
hear
that
how
they
like
dealt with.
how terrible they are, your heart just
Mhm.
immediately like goes to that, you know what I mean? So I totally
Yeah.
understand why those exist. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pope Gregory was a very strong supporter of Saint Agatha. And
Mhm.
like her popularity really rose during the Middle Ages as well. I think people were
Mm.
becoming more and more appalled, or like they couldn't believe that this had happened, and there were all these signs of telling Quintanius
Ananias?
to stop, and he
Yeah.
didn't ever stop, right?
Yeah.
And Gregory the Great, actually, the Pope, he was the one who really believed that images of religious art shouldn't be suppressed so
Mm.
that the illiterate could at least read by looking at the photos and looking at the
Mm.
walls.
Interesting.
So a lot of the imagery that you see of her was really encouraged by him as well. Like this
Oh, wow.
whole concept of
And
like
they
her breast
are
spinning on the
really,
plate.
I would encourage everybody to Google the images of her because they're really beautiful, actually. Um,
Hmm.
Even though it's kind of sad when you see that those particular images, but I mean it's still they are really gorgeous. I love that. And like here we
Yeah.
go, you know, cultures are like groups of time and historically, and people, things are not black and white. One single person can be good and bad all in the same breath. They can do a good thing and do
Hmm.
a bad thing at the same time.
Hmm.
I like that idea of like being able to educate people at least through imagery if they're not, if they
Yeah.
can't read and write or something like that. I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And about a year after her death, like on the day commemorating her death, apparently,
Hmm.
Mount Etna erupted and the lava started flowing towards the city, and the inhabitants of the city rushed to St. Agatha's tomb, apparently took out her red veil.
Mm.
So they like dug it up, took out her red veil, held it up against the streaming lava, and it suddenly stopped before doing any harm. And then she became the patron saint of Catania.
Okay.
And so people believe that she has saved the city a number of times because, you know,
Hmm.
there have been lots of earthquakes and eruptions, um, even like the plague and things like that. And it's all kind of missed
Yeah.
that area.
Interesting.
And like they think that, you know, she protected them from the wrath of Emperor Frederick II in the year 1231. They always like come back to St. Agatha as being the protector of the city.
With these like more well known, like even if their story isn't like very big or long, I wonder with these more well known female saints, like Agatha, I often wonder if there was like if she was a mask for something else, like if over
Hmm.
time she took on story traits of a goddess from the area or something. I don't know much about Sicilian culture in that way, so I don't really know if that would be a thing, but I've seen it before,
I
so
don't know either.
it makes me
Yeah,
wonder, because those are like
I'm
the
not
types
sure.
of things a goddess would do as well, you know what I mean, like in
Yeah,
stories. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, her feast day is on February the 5th, and lots of ceremonies and processions take place,
Mm.
especially in Sicily, obviously. She's particularly venerated there.
Hmm.
But there's churches and chapels dedicated to St. Agatha all over the world because she really is a symbol of resistance to religious persecution, and then also
Ironic.
defense of faith.
It's all very
Yeah.
ironic. It's really interesting. I think you made a really like good observation slash point about like up until like the 5th century or 6th century AD, saints were picked by
Yeah.
popular opinion. And the more I
Yeah.
think about that, the more I think about that might actually be like a bit of a marker of something within the church, because
Hmm.
especially in these two stories, um when I think about these women in relation to Jesus and what I understand of like, I've done like a lot of learning around just Jesus, because I think, like, to me Jesus was probably, like, definitely didn't want a religion based on him, but if you take it for like what people said he was probably actually quite a rebel, and he was actually against a lot of the things that he then becomes later. He becomes the, like, poster child for.
Yeah.
So I wonder if in the early stages of Christianity, where things are still kind of based in that rebellion, if that is another thing that pulls so many women into the
Mm-hmm.
faith of it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
I really feel like there's something like that happening that I don't fully have context to yet, but I really feel like that exists.
It very well could be. And like the thing with the frustrating thing about all of these saint stories is you're given bits and pieces of
Yeah,
information
they only
and
tell
there's
you
so many
what
gaps.
suits the, probably what
Yeah.
suits them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many gaps and like, if she died in 251 was the year, like I can't
And
really fathom.
I can't help but think it's slightly strategic, and it's slightly done for a reason. Like, even some of the most famous women in the Bible, like Mary Magdalene, so many of her stories are kind of like elaborations, because there's so
Mhm.
little said about her, even though she was like practically like, and she was practically like an apostle. She was
She was
hardcore
his wife.
devoted. She was hardcore devoted to Jesus. Like, she and evangelized people throughout the world, wherever you think
Yeah.
she went. You know what I mean? So, and so little
Yeah.
information about her. Why? You know what I mean? And I feel that way for many of these women. There's obviously more that didn't get written, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason why
Yeah.
these stories, there's also, I feel, and that's part of the thing that makes me sad and angry, so there's also a reason why these stories of what happened to these women is so fucked up. You know what I mean? It's meant to
Yeah.
trigger
That's
you. It's meant to
yeah,
trigger you.
it 100% is. It is
Mhm.
meant to trigger you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the story of Saint Agatha.
Good story.
It is sad. It makes you mad.
Yeah. It invokes
Yeah.
a lot. It's good.
And the imagery, like Tegan said, it is really beautiful.
Hmm.
I mean,
Like,
it's a little gruesome,
it's, I
but
mean,
it's
it's
beautiful.
for stained glass. It's like, it's just pretty. You
Yeah.
should check it out. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, in Italy, when they actually celebrate in Sicily, they have these little cakes because they like, have certain treats that come out on certain name days.
Hmm.
And they're like little cakes with maraschino cherries on top, and they're meant to look like little boobs.
Get out of town.
Yeah, I forget what they're
What?
called though.
And they're named after, they're for her?
They're for her. They're on her name day, right? Like so
Oh my
when
God.
people are celebrating and venerating her on February 5th, they have these specific treats that come out.
I see them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm
they're meant to be
sad.
little
They look
boobies.
delicious.
They do.
If I had to describe this to you all, I would say it's a tiny little pastry, like that could fit into one of those little doilies. It's got some kind of cream in the middle. It looks like it has a layer of pistachio and then icing on the top, but the icing covers, like, look at this picture. Can you see that? You probably can't
Yeah.
see that.
No, I've seen them.
The icing covers the nipple, so I mean, the icing
The
covers the
cherry?
cherry, so it really looks like a nipple because it's
Yeah.
not red anymore. It's kind of pink.
Yeah, I've seen some where the cherry is left alone and others where, yeah, the icing covers it. So, yeah, but it's meant
Agatha's
to
Saint,
represent.
Saint Agatha's breasts, Mini
Yeah.
de Virginie, Castini Sicilian, or Saint Agatha breasts. My gosh,
Yeah.
that's
Yummy.
far. I want to say I wouldn't eat that, but I also probably would want to try it just out of curiosity.
It looks pretty good,
It
actually.
looks real good. I wish I can't
It
eat
looks really
that.
great.
No more sugar for me.
Oh, not right now, at least.
No.
Anyways,
Yeah, when this baby's
um,
out, I'm gonna eat some boobies. Wait a minute.
I think that's going to be the baby.
Yeah, exactly. My gosh.
So, yes, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about St. Agatha. We will be back next week with some other saints. Don't know which ones yet. But thank you so much for joining us.
Definitely going to talk about Joan of Arc next week, I think. For sure.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc. Do, 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 Joan of Arc. Do you know that Arcade Fire song? It's a good one.
Oh, I was like, what is happening?
Sorry.
Oh, I forgot about Arcade Fire a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, everybody did. They were so huge. And then nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then nothing. That's okay. If you would like to send us an email, allegorystorypodcast@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Instagram or message us on Instagram, Allegory Story Podcast. And we'll see you next week for Joan of Arc.
We'll see you then.